happy Thanksgiving week. We know that this is going to air on a Monday morning, and everybody listening in is looking forward to celebrating Thanksgiving this week. And we want to start right out by saying thank you so much to our listeners for tuning in each week and encouraging us. And as of this moment, we are just shy of about 50,000 plays. And so, yeah. And so we want to thank you for that. That means a lot to us. It'll probably happen at, in fact, some point today. And the stats that I get record the plays from about 4 different platforms. I know this is aired on other platforms, but this is what I have. We're so grateful for that. We pray before each and every episode that what we have to say will encourage you and remind you to look up. And we want you to know that you do the very same for us. So, Kathy Pollard, one of your hosts. This is a podcast for Christian women. And with me is Carla Moore, your other host. She's in Texas. I'm in Kentucky. We're dear friends. We love getting together to chat each week and inviting you to join that conversation with us. We hope that you'll just grab a drink or feel like you're sitting at a kitchen table with us enjoying this conversation. And today we're going to talk about an interesting topic. But before we get to that, Carla, what's new with you?
I'm just praying that my internet holds out because I'm here at home and it doesn't always work out so well. So also John is here. I just shared with you before we hit record, and that makes me really nervous. I don't know why. Why does it make me nervous?
I don't know. The men aren't allowed to be around when we record. That's the rule.
Yeah, I'm breaking the rule today, or he's breaking the rule. One of us is breaking the rule, but maybe I'll get over it. Maybe this will be the thing that it's like exposure therapy. So he's right in there, but I made him turn a fan on so that he couldn't hear me so well. But I can hear him talking. He's on the phone, I guess, with somebody. So hopefully he won't be part of this podcast.
Probably not. He'll probably stay busy working on stuff and studying and all those things that John does.
He better. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Thanksgiving, what are your plans?
Well, they're still sort of in the making because since Mom moved over to Doug's, used to, it was just kind of a given that we would have it here just because Mom and Dad lived next door basically. And so Doug and Karen would come over here, but now Mom's over there. But Jordan, Aaron, and the kids are coming here. Micah and Courtney will come Thursday evening. So it's still just all kind of up in the air if we're going to get together with the Garner side of the family or if we're going to be here. And, I fly by the seat of my pants and I'll figure it out. But my mom is a little anxious. Sorry, Mom, I know you listen. She wants to know what she's supposed to make. And I can't really tell her yet. Doug and Karen and John and I are getting together for dinner tonight. So we'll talk about it and figure it out. What are y'all doing?
We're having a pretty big crowd. And, everybody has moved to Kentucky. So there's all of our kids and their families will be here. And my mom and Ray will be here. My sister and Bud will be here. And then from out of state is coming Neil's mom and dad and brother and his sister and her husband. So it's the first time in years, that we've been able to be with his sister too. So they'll be staying. I think they're coming in on about Tuesday and they'll be here through Saturday. So, and then all the local people will come in the day of, and eat with us. But
is everyone bringing something or are you doing everything?
I'm not doing everything. And, because they've said, what can we bring? And all I say is there a special dish that means Thanksgiving to you, that you really want to make? And so I've got different people. My mom's bringing a couple of pies and some homemade noodles and green beans. And I think Janelle's making sweet potato casserole. And, so I'm making my little list. And so that makes my list getting a lot smaller. So, so far I'm only doing the turkey and the mashed potatoes. And
do you already have your turkey?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. We picked up we decided to pick up a couple of smoked turkeys. We keep going back and forth. Some years we'll get a smoked turkey and it tastes great. And all you have to do is heat it through. And then some years we try and roast it. And I just haven't really figured that out. I cannot really roast a really good turkey. So
I've done a Pioneer Woman brined turkey that was amazing one time. And it was a lot of work, but it was really good. I mean, you make a brine, it seems like there was apple cider vinegar and peppercorns and oranges. And I mean, it was all kinds of neat things, but you have to have a container big enough to put all that liquid in and then put the turkey in and then have somewhere to put it, like a spare refrigerator or something. But it was really good. But I'm just not a big turkey lover. But have you ever had a Greenberg smoked turkey? Have you ever heard of it?
Never heard
It's
of
a
it.
company in Tyler, Texas. And my grandmother, dad's mom, used to always buy them every holiday. And they're amazing. Somehow, when you cut into it, there's like cuts in the meat already with pepper, like pepper shoved in the turkey.
Ooh.
And then they smoke it for I don't know how long, but those are the best smoked turkeys I've ever had. Would
All
love to
right,
have one of
so
those. Greenberg. It's in Tyler, Texas, but they ship everywhere. And Central Market here has them. I was thinking there's some Central Markets around the country, but anyway, yeah,
I
those
need
are
you to
delicious.
remind me next October of this conversation.
All right, setting my alarm for October 31st, 2024.
You are such a good friend.
I didn't actually do it. Yeah, I will.
One
I'll try
year
to
when we
remember.
lived in Colorado, Neil and Carl were all into the turkey, and they did some sort of brine, and even did the thing where you get the big syringes and inject stuff into the bird, and smoked it all day on the smoker, and it was a ton of work.
Yeah.
And turned out okay.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was good, but it wasn't like worth all of that work. And so anyway,
I'm just not a big turkey lover. I'd rather have
I
ham
love
myself.
a good smoke. Well, we do ham at Christmas, so that's why we.
Sometimes we go rogue and do different things and don't even have Thanksgiving food. It just depends. But Erin especially is a traditionalist and likes, the stuffing, and she makes really good. Is it stuffing or dressing? Dressing is, I think, what?
I think it all depends where you serve it. I
Okay,
think if
so
it's in the
stuffing goes in the
bird,
bird.
it's stuffing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we don't do that. So
We don't
she
either.
makes good dressing, and that's kind of a tradition because she'll bake the cornbread the night before, and she's just really, that's one of her specialties, I think. But I bought things yesterday. This is where my priorities are, for a mashed potato dish, that half baked harvest. That's kind of my new favorite recipe person. And it's a caramelized onion mashed potatoes, and you sort of bake the potatoes in the crock pot for hours, and then, which I've never done. I mean, I've never done it that way. Put the whole potato in the crock pot. Okay. And then I need to read the recipe again, but you caramelize the onions, and it has Gruyere. Is that how you say it? Do you know? Gruyere cheese? I think. Gruyere, however, Gruyere cheese, which is not cheap. But I bought some of that, and lots of butter and sour cream and heavy cream. So I haven't bought a meat yet, but I have bought mashed potato stuff.
It's all about the size.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I heard you say homemade noodles your mom makes. Is it just noodles, or does she add stuff to it, or what is it?
Well, you cook it in the turkey broth. And they're not like regular pasta, like Italian pasta. The texture's a little bit different. My grandma made them, my mom made them, I make them. And so this year my mom said she would make them and bring them. So they're really good. It's just part of
homemade pasta.
Thanksgiving. Yes. Yeah.
Well, you can't beat that.
No, it's really good. And you cook them in the broth, and the broth thickens up a little bit. So it's almost like it makes its own sauce, from the flour, from the noodles that you roll and stick in there. And they're really good.
Do y'all have Thanksgiving traditions?
Just the food. We don't have any of those special cool things that cool families do. But you were talking about going rogue. I think that I would have some majorly upset children, namely Carl, because he's our traditionalist. He likes for everything to be, don't mess with the memories. Everything has to be just so. This is how you make it. This is how it's supposed to be. So I think we have to have all the things: sweet potato casserole and dressing and noodles and
we probably do the rogue thing more at Christmas, because Christmas Eve, we might make Mexican food, or we might have Italian food. 2 years ago, I think Micah made homemade spaghetti bolognese, and that was so good. It was a lot of work. Yeah. But Thanksgiving, it's kind of traditional, and turkey and ham and dressing and some kind of potato dish and lots of desserts.
Sometimes lots of desserts for sure.
Yeah. And sometimes when there's so many desserts, it almost, this is weird, but it almost turns me off. Like I don't want any of them. Isn't that weird? Maybe I need to have desserts around all the time, and then I would never want to eat them.
Well, for me, it's like cooking pancakes, especially if you still have your big family at home. By the time you've cooked enough pancakes to feed everybody else, I don't want any for myself.
Yeah.
It's like
Uh-huh.
I don't want any pancakes. And I feel that way about making all those pies and desserts. You spend all that time cooking. By the
Hmm.
time you actually sit down to eat, I feel like I'm just barely picking at my food.
Yeah.
It's like,
Have you
uh,
seen those memes that say it's that time of year when you spend 5 hours cooking so your kids will eat this and it's a piece of bread. My kids are past that now,
yeah.
but it used to be that way. Just give them one of those butter crust rolls and they're happy.
Oh, well, here's a question for you. Do you guys have deviled eggs at Thanksgiving?
Mm-mm.
We had this conversation at Tuesday night at ladies Bible class. Some
Is that
people
a tradition?
say, well, that's what I think it was Kelly Nix was saying, that deviled eggs is always a part of their Thanksgiving meal. And then somebody else was saying, well, it's never a part of our Thanksgiving meal. And then I started thinking about it and I thought, I actually don't remember, which means it's probably not.
Mm-mm. No, I've never been much of a deviled eggs fan until I discovered Duke's mayonnaise. Thank you to Michelle, my friend, who introduced Duke's mayonnaise to me. But now I like them, but I didn't before. So
We've also switched to Duke's mayonnaise just within the
yeah,
past year or two, probably thanks to you. I've been a Kraft girl my entire life,
yeah.
and now we've switched over to Duke's.
I'm not even sure. I think it's because it's not tart,
Hmm. I
less
don't know.
tartness. I don't,
It is a good mayonnaise.
yeah. Well, have you, do y'all watch the parade, the Thanksgiving Day parade?
We usually have it on in the
Hmm.
background. I mean, there will be people sitting in the living room watching it, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah. Well, you can't sit on Thanksgiving,
That's
but
right.
this, our living room lends itself. I can have it on and see it. But
Hmm.
a few years ago, I tried one of those Pinterest things that was the canned cinnamon rolls, and you make turkeys out of them. So you make the cinnamon roll, but then you have two pieces of bacon that you stick in, or two or three for the tail feathers for the turkey, and then you have the little eyes that you put on and a candy corn for the nose. They were so cute on Pinterest. And then when I did them, do you remember this picture? You know what I'm
Yes.
talking about?
Yes,
So
I do.
I guess the key is not icing them when they're hot, putting the icing on for the eyes, because you put drops of icing on and then you put the eyes on. So mine, when I did, the icing was melted and the eyes were all drooping down the turkey. It was one of those Pinterest fails big time, but nobody cared because they tasted the same.
Still tasted good, I'm sure.
Yeah, bacon and cinnamon rolls, can't beat that.
I'm just impressed with you that you would even have tried that.
Well, it was easy. It was canned
It's
cinnamon
a,
rolls.
but still, you're putting something together to make it look like a turkey. That's impressive. You love
Well,
your family.
I guess that's what that means, right? Wanted the kids to be happy. Just give them
I'm
sugar.
gonna try this recipe to have on hand while everybody's here. That who made it? Alice Humphrey, one of our elders' wives. We had a singing night Friday night,
Hmm.
and it was similar to several years ago. I learned from a friend of ours that used to make that dessert that was graham crackers
Hmm.
and some sort of brown sugar buttery thing and
Hmm.
pecans.
Yeah.
Well, this was very similar to that, except it also had chocolate on the top. And I just assumed it was the same thing, except
Hmm.
she had added the chocolate on top. But it tasted so good. And what I found out is she didn't use graham crackers, she used Ritz crackers.
Ooh, buttery.
Oh man, that salty sweet combination was
Hmm.
crazy good. And
Did she crush them
she,
up or just lay them on the?
no, she just
Oh.
layered them out in the pan,
Hmm.
boiled together her brown sugar and butter and spread that over it. And I think you bake it at that point and then pull it out and then sprinkle chocolate chips on it and let it get soft and then spread that on and
Hmm.
then harden it in the fridge, break it up into pieces.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I can't even remember if it had pecans on it or not, actually, but it was so good. And I'm going to make that and have it out on a tray while
Yeah.
everybody's here.
Now that's the kind of stuff that will tempt me. Just little
Mm-hmm.
things that you grab a bite of here or there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I would like that. Mom makes at Christmas time, she makes a marshmallow roll, which doesn't really sound all that good, but she uses like actual Hershey chocolate bars and
Hmm.
melts them, and then little small marshmallows and roasted nuts, like not just pecans, but she roasts the pecans first. And that
Mm-hmm.
just
Okay.
always makes them better. and
Right.
chops them up and then mixes it all together and then puts it on wax paper and makes a roll out of it and then slices it,
Hmm.
thin slices. But oh, that's good stuff too. I mean, it's just simple,
Like
but
chocolate salami.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. That's what we probably should call it now. Chocolate salami. Sounds delicious, doesn't it?
Send me that recipe if she doesn't mind
Yeah,
sharing.
yeah, she'd be happy to.
That sounds fun.
How did the baby shower go?
Oh man, we got to shop for girl things. It was so
Mm-hmm.
much fun. We did all clothes pretty much. Well, I think I got a couple of things for Rich, but
Mm-hmm.
it was so much fun. All these cute little dresses, and I asked Emily ahead of time, what color scheme are you, leaning toward with
Mm-hmm.
Amara? Because I tend to lean toward those soft, muted colors, and maybe she wants to do like turquoise and purple or bright,
Mm-hmm.
bold, cheerful colors.
Primary. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just did, and I want to do what she wants to do,
Yeah.
for her little girl. But she said she tends to lean towards soft, muted colors as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I had so much fun finding all those cute little dresses and little sweaters, and
Mm-hmm.
it was so much fun. But
Yeah.
all of her family was there, and our kids, and my mom and Ray, and so they had rented this little place in Scottsville that had a caterer. So the
Mm-hmm.
meal was catered, the caterer did the cake and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
it was fun. Turned
Is
out
it
really well.
kind of a um regional thing to do a family baby shower? Because we just haven't really, I mean, I know some people around here that do that, but it's more like church showers here.
I have only ever been to church showers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know if it's a regional thing or an Emily thing, because we had a family shower with Rich also, and then a family shower with Amara. So, but all the other showers I've been to have been, church sponsored, church family,
Yeah.
or like Janelle had one that was hosted by one of her dear friends.
Yeah.
And she invited all of Janelle's family in, and all of their friends, all of her college friends were there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Good question.
Different showers in different areas, I think, do different things. It's just kind
Yeah.
of funny to me. Different parts
Yeah.
of the world too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh, I was going to show you my T-shirt. I'll stand up. Can you see what it says, or is it
Farm Sweet
backwards?
Farm. That's
Farm
cute.
Sweet Farm.
Mm-hmm.
Found this on the clearance rack at
Nice.
Stockdale's. Yeah.
Stockdale's. You took me there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a neat place. It
Mm-hmm.
has gifts and things, but it's also kind of like a farm supply store, right?
Yeah, feed store. You can get all your homesteady kind of stuff, but then they also have a cute section, a gardening section, a Western wear section, all that stuff. They
Mm-hmm.
have cute toys for kids, some of the classics.
Yeah.
Do you remember that little projector thing that had the
Yes.
plastic the rectangular
Mm-hmm.
movie things that you'd shove in there, and then
Yeah.
you turn the project? They had those.
Yeah.
It's like
Is it
bringing back the classics. They're
so
so
it's
cute.
new, but it's kind of a
It's
retro
yeah, it
style?
was a brand new toy, but it's the classic toys that they're bringing back. So
Yeah.
so fun.
Fun.
Yeah.
Well, we cleared cedar all weekend. Well, not all weekend, but most of the weekend. All of the cedar that's down towards the road, John's been cutting down with the with the chainsaw. But yesterday I went and took my mom to run a couple of errands, and as I'm driving away, just don't tell anybody. But he texted me and he said, "I'm really missing my drag queen." I'm gonna really regret saying that
What?
because when he cuts the oh man, he's gonna kill me.
Oh, you
So
drag.
I drag the
You
cedar
drag
from
the
where he
cedar.
cuts it to the fire.
Oh my
So that's
goodness.
my job. I mean, I'm dragging all day long. And oh boy.
Oh, this episode is going to get flagged by
Oh,
people looking at that subject.
okay.
I'm just kidding.
Back that up. Yeah. So he's going to kill me.
Is that
And
his
all
nickname for you then? When
no,
you're out
it's the
there
first
working
time
in
he's
the
ever
yard?
said it. But yesterday when I'm driving away going, oh boy. But I on Monday, I think we were home all day, which felt glorious, by the way. It doesn't happen very often.
Mhm.
But I got 9 miles just in the front yard
Whoa.
because I was going back and forth, pulling the
Wow.
cedars, dragging the
That's
cedar branches and stuff.
crazy.
So it was good exercise. My knees were killing me. Sound like an old
Mm-hmm.
lady, but it looks so good. And I don't know. It's just we never had time to do anything like this when the boys were growing up. It was just, you barely have energy and time to get everyone dressed and where they're supposed to be. So it's just very, I don't know, gratifying to clear the land. Can't imagine doing it with an axe.
We miss our boys, don't we? But there are beautiful things about the empty nest.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I love that they have their own families and their own friends and their own lives, and we do too. And they intermix and intermingle sometimes, but oh yeah, the empty nest was hard at first, but yeah, we enjoy being together by ourselves.
Have we done an episode on that?
The empty nest?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about it on the Bringing Up Boys, didn't we? But we haven't. That's a good topic.
Yeah, we should do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's different stages of it, right? Because the early empty nest, of course, we had Micah was 6 years younger than Jake, so it was almost like he was an only child for a while. So we kind of gradually phased out of our full nest to the empty nest. But anyway,
we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, good topic idea.
Oh, I was going to tell you some of the things now that things have quieted down since we've returned. I made butter, yogurt. I've got cottage cheese ready to go for today. And I made steak butter. So that is butter that has, I still have some herbs that are doing really good. So it's got chopped parsley and thyme, fresh garlic, lemon zest, paprika, salt and pepper, sea salt and freshly ground smoked black pepper is what I used.
Yeah.
So you make up I made the butter and then mixed in all those ingredients and then rolled it up in wax paper. So that
butter salami.
Whatever you're pulling off the grill, you just slice up a little medallion of that and put it on top of your steak or pork chop or whatever it is and let it just melt all over it. So
yeah. I can hear every word John is saying, and I can hear who he's on the phone with too. Please tell me you can't hear him.
I can't hear it.
Okay, I'm glad.
But we're also talking, so maybe if we stop talking, we can't stop talking.
No, we're not supposed to do that. Well, I finished the scripture writing book.
Yay! Congratulations. That's a huge job. How long does it take you to do that?
I mean, I've been working on it for 5 or 6 weeks, I guess.
Wow.
Not every single day, but I mean, almost every single day. And yesterday I thought I was done. I mean, I was like, okay, I usually will send one to Office Depot, like half of one, the 6-month, just to see it, hold it to make sure that, like when you put the spiral binding on, that it doesn't cut into the words, in the margin, things like that. And I just want to see it before, because you can see it on the screen and it looks different than when you actually hold it in your hand before I send it to TCI Graphics. But so yesterday I was uploading what I thought was the finished file to Office Depot. And when you do that, it takes a good little while for the upload to appear on the screen. And then you can actually see what it looks like. It gives you a mock-up, and you can push this little arrow that takes you to the next page, And so you can kind of flip through virtually. So when I did that and I pushed the button to flip to the next page, the cover, that image that I showed last week was chopped off on the side and on the top.
Oh,
I was like, that's weird. So I clicked to the next page and half the text was chopped off on the side and on the top.
Oh no.
And so I'm like, what in the world is going on? And when I went back and looked at the page size, because I do it in pages, and I'm sure there's an easier way of doing it, but this is how I know how to do it. So kind of like, don't tell me, don't tell me if there's a way simpler way to do it. Or maybe tell me next June before I start thinking about next year. But I had the page size all wrong. It was like instead of what I was thinking was going to be 8.5 by 11, just the typical letter size. It was, I want to say it was like 7 by 9 or something like that. It was a weird page size.
Yeah.
It looked completely normal when I'm creating it on my screen, because it was, typical what looked like letter size. So that was yesterday morning. And, you have that feeling of like the blood draining from your body. And I'm thinking, I've got to have this to them by the 20th really is when he wanted it. And so I spent all day yesterday resizing
Oh no.
every text box, and I had to change the formatting in every text box. I had to take out all the maps that I'd put in there, and I had to resize all of the fonts. I had to take out all of the it's tables, what I use to make the lines on each page. I had to take those all out and replace them. So all day yesterday was just, I mean, it was mindless in a way because I got into a groove, but I told John to resize the text box that has the actual scripture printed in it. It took 11 clicks to fix it. So click times 365 days. So that was a lot of fun. And I finished it finally at about midnight last night. And I've uploaded it. And the weird thing, Office Depot, usually you can pick up a copy, have it printed and pick it up. They don't do that now, or at least all of the locations I looked at said they'll deliver it, they'll mail it, but you can't pick it up. So maybe they don't do it in store anymore. So I can't actually hold it until next week when it's delivered. But anyway, I'm hoping it's done. I'm hoping that I didn't mess something else up.
Well, we just picked up our copy of the bound Mediterranean Bible passages journal that y'all put together. Yeah, we had the hard copy printed off, and we went and picked it up at the store.
Maybe it's just different locations do it, and sometimes it may have something to do with the number of pages too. I don't know. So I just didn't have time to question it last night because I thought we were going to San Antonio later today to take care of Olivia. I thought, well, I'll pick it up there. None of the stores around them did that. None of them here in Austin that are close to us did it. So,
well, when we're all holding that physical copy in our hands, we're going to think about you and all the hours of work you put into it. Well, seriously, I know everybody appreciates that. It is a ton of work, even without the having to go back and make sizing corrections. It's a lot of work.
Well, it's a labor of love. It's been good for me. This is the 5th year, so I'm excited.
That's awesome. Blesses so many people. That's a perfect segue. I wanted to share. Neil showed me a picture the other day of a woman holding something that he said, "Do you know what this is?" And I said, "A Bible." And he said that, well, he and Hiram went to visit Leroy and Diana Johnson. And let me see if I have that picture handy. Well, anyway, he said that she has been, I'm sorry, I can't talk and do this at the same time. Never mind. She has been writing the verses of the Bible, every single verse in the Bible. And so what she did was she cross-stitched the cover. So where it says Holy Bible, she made that as a cross-stitch. And then on the inside are all of her handwritten pages of every single word in the Bible. That is
She's done the whole Bible.
She's done the whole Bible, and that is her personal handwritten copy. It took her about a year.
Yeah.
And Neil said that she explained that her husband encouraged her to get to know the word better and said maybe it would help you to write it out. And so she did. She just started from the very beginning and took her about a year. And there are 783,137 words.
Wow.
And that she wrote down. And she told Neil that she even, if it was the words of Jesus, she put down her black pen and picked up her red pen and wrote the words of Jesus in red. Yeah. And she said that it made a difference in her knowledge of the Bible. And even to this day, when she hears something in a sermon, somebody's quoting scripture or saying something, she can usually kind of tell something doesn't sound quite right. And she'll go and look it up, but just from all that time, I know I've got to show this.
Well, or you can share it in group next week if you can't find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, writing it just makes a difference. But the whole Bible in 1 year, wow.
Yeah, let me see. So people watching, I don't know if it's a good picture there, but you can see her holding it. I'll share the picture, a better picture in the group so everybody can see it. But how encouraging is that? I think Neil's actually going to use it as an illustration in his sermon on Sunday, all the time that she put into that. But anybody listening, her husband's name is Leroy, and he's not doing really good at all. So that's why Neil and Hiram went to visit them. So say a prayer for Leroy and Diana Johnson. And
Okay.
I thought that was just so encouraging. And I think about how you're encouraging all these people to get into the word and write it. And it really does make you stop and think when you're taking the time to write it word by word. I did notice that you can do it mindlessly.
Yeah.
There
Oh
have been
yeah.
times when I've been writing it out and it dawned on me, my mind went completely
Mm-hmm.
somewhere else. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're focusing, it does really cause you to pick up some things that maybe you've never seen before or paid attention to before. And
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do the just one book next year. I don't think I've told, maybe I told you, I don't know, but I haven't told anybody really what we're doing, but it's just the book of Genesis.
That'd be
So
great.
I think it's
Yeah.
going to be, I thought for a long time about it because I was afraid some people might lose interest in just doing one book. But when you think about, it's like a saga,
Mm-hmm.
this huge narrative that covers hundreds and hundreds of years and so many different Bible stories. And I know some people don't like to use the word story, but it means that it can mean a true narrative account.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was laying the text in, just kind of reliving those childhood Bible stories, and it really does make it real. Now the genealogies might be a little tedious here and there, but even that,
Yeah.
John was talking the other night to me about it and saying even genealogies can be theologically rich when you look into some of the people that God placed in the genealogy. It's there for a reason. So
Mm-hmm.
um, so it's going to be a year of Genesis, a year of
Yeah.
beginnings.
Scripture writing 2024, the book of Genesis. You heard
Yep.
it here first, folks.
Waiting with bated breath.
All right. Is there anything else you want to chat about before we get into our topic? I know that we have a special cutoff time for you because you have
Yeah.
things to do.
Nope,
So,
I'm done. I'm done.
okay. So today we're talking about balancing grace and truth, and we're just going to have a conversation about it. I've been thinking a lot about this topic lately, and um, I don't know what brought it up in my mind. You know, sometimes you see things or hear things, and I started thinking about how, and I could be wrong. I hate to make generalization kind of topics because really the things that I'm saying or experiencing are from my viewpoint and my corner of the world. So
Mm-hmm.
may not be the same for everybody. But having said that, um, I was kind of thinking along the lines that it seems like at some point in our history, and when I say our history, I'm speaking of the Lord's church, that we were really, really big on, love and truth and knowing the word and, things like that. And then maybe some people saw us as sort of, I'm trying to think about, I should have thought more carefully about how I want to word this in a way that makes sense. Maybe some people saw us as harsh and judgmental on people outside the Lord's church. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And and then it seems like there's kind of been this little bit of a pendulum swing, and we've been focusing more on grace and toward people who aren't Christians and being loving and compassionate and open arms and welcoming, to people in the world and things like that. But at the same time, it seems to me we're a lot harder on each other.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And and I'm saying that because I feel like I keep seeing things on, social media about people with their accusations against the church.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, some of them are nitpicky, and the problem with the church is this, or the problem with, and harsh things said about fellow Christians. And so it was like we just did this complete switcheroo. And so now we're loving and embracing of, and accepting and tolerant of everything
Yeah.
out in the world and of people who aren't even Christians. And then, but with each other, impatient and critical and this needs to be done differently and this is wrong and this shouldn't have been handled this way, And again, I'm acknowledging that that could be a very narrow view, and maybe it's different at, other places. And that just seems to be some things that I've been seeing. But I kind of thought, let's just have a conversation about that. Let's talk about balancing grace and truth, because Jesus did that perfectly. And
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about his interactions with people, how beautifully he did that. And it wasn't that half of him was truth and half of
Mm-hmm.
him was grace. It was that he was both of them perfectly and completely.
Mm-hmm.
He was all truth
Mm-hmm.
and all grace.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to strive for. Both of those examples that I gave um, aren't aren't good. And we need to hold truth high and revere it and respect it and see it as important, like the Bible teaches that it is. And we need to be grace filled in our actions with everybody, people who aren't Christians and people who are.
Yeah.
And so I thought that's our challenge. And the truth is, we probably all lean toward one or the other. And as individuals, we probably naturally lean more toward either being really heavy on the grace or really heavy on the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe somebody who leans heavily on the grace is loving and open and compassionate and forgives easily, but maybe not as interested about growing their knowledge of the Bible or spending as much time in the Word or, teaching truth or standing up for truth. And whereas somebody who might lean more toward that truth emphasis is all about studying and growing and trying to learn more about the Word and holding fast to the Word and defending the truth, but they have a hard time forgiving their brother or sister. Or they
Mm-hmm.
have a hard time not being a little bit self-righteous or judgmental, or they have a hard time being compassionate with people struggling in the world. So um, those are those natural tendencies that we have to fight, whichever side we fall on, and try to be more like Christ, who demonstrates what it looks like to balance grace and truth.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had never made that connection before. The way you said the pendulum swing, I thought you were going to say that before we were, tied to truth and known as walking Bibles. I put a cough drop in. Sorry if I accidentally spit it out. I'll try not to. We were known a certain way. I think, especially back when I was a child,
Mm-hmm.
that members of the Church of Christ were walking Bibles, and we defended truth and we stood up for truth, and we were known for just holding fast to the truth. And now, like you say, we maybe have swung more towards grace, but I have never made that connection. Like you were saying, that we're harder on each other now, as opposed to all of us standing against error, the world, if you want to put it that way. And now maybe embracing, I know we don't embrace error. I'm not saying that at all, but we may be a little bit more gracious towards it. But we're not very gracious towards one another. I've never really thought about that. And I think that is so true. But with the advent of social media, we say things that we never would have said face to face. We'll say them because we're, behind a keyboard. It's a lot easier to say things when you're not speaking with someone. But and speaking to what you were talking about, I think personality traits have a lot to do. I know I lean more towards the grace filled, I'm non-combative, non-confrontational. I don't like any of that. And sometimes I feel like you have to be a little bit that way in order to stand up for truth. But I forget sometimes that I have to remind myself sometimes that the power is in the word and not in me. And when I speak truth that comes from the word, that's what's working on someone's heart and not so much my words. And just making that balance between saying it gracefully. I wrote down the word tact. I think that tact has so much to do with it. And I looked at what really some synonyms for tact are: sensitivity and understanding and thoughtfulness, consideration, diplomacy, discretion, discernment, judgment, judiciousness, and being perceptive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we run into some issues sometimes is saying words of truth, but saying them in such a way that makes them, they're seasoned with salt. They're easy to swallow. So that's the challenge. Jesus, like you said, was full of grace and truth. He was 100% of both, but most of us are not. They tend to be
Right.
one way or the other.
Right. And I think I was just seeing some things where it seemed like, um, and I love this. I love the open doors and the welcoming and the loving and all those things that we do need to be.
Right.
We need to show our communities that we're loving and welcoming and make them want to spend time with us. That's all important. And yet maybe that same individual will have a chip on their shoulder if it's anything involving somebody in the church.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I've been thinking about is, if the leadership handles something in a way that they don't like, or a fellow brother or sister says something and they take it personally,
Mm-hmm.
and go off on a rant or whatever it is, and you just kind of want to go, why can't you show that same love and patience and generosity and gracious spirit to your own brothers and sisters in Christ?
Yeah.
And instead of being so quick to point out faults or flaws or perceived, you know, insults or whatever, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of some of the things that have been swirling around in my mind and felt like it was important to talk about. And the challenge is that balance, finding that balance. We're not talking about being so on the grace-filled side that we have no convictions and we never talk about truth and we never tell people the truth that they do need to hear. True grace is kindness and love, and that is going to motivate us to want to tell them the truth in a gracious, tactful way, as you said. So I forget where I was going with that when I started that sentence, but the challenge is finding that balance of recognizing they're both equally important. And think about all the different avenues of our own lives where we see that, not just in the church, not just with our church families, but in our own homes. If there's a problem in your marriage, it's probably because those are not balanced.
Yeah.
You're probably leaning too far in one direction or the other. And the challenge is finding that balance to create the harmony in your marriage. And the same with parenting. Child rearing can be really difficult. And sometimes when we look back over our parenting, especially where you and I are, and we have the ability now to kind of look back and see some things, we can probably see there were probably times in our parenting where that was out of balance. And maybe we should have done a better job of balancing both grace and truth as we were bringing it up. Maybe that looks differently with each child. You think about with our firstborn, I think I've mentioned this on here before. He told us one time that we just came down so hard on him. And at first I was like, what? Don't be ridiculous. But he was right. Yeah. And, and by the time we got to our third child, we were older. We were a little bit more mature. We had learned some hard lessons, and we probably did balance it. Yeah. A little bit more. So that's kind of what some of the things that I've been thinking of when I brought up this topic.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. What works with you if someone needs to speak a hard truth to you? Would you rather hear it bluntly? I mean, I think I know the answer. I guess I'm just open this for discussion. Or do you need it, covered with sugar and marshmallows and all the good stuff? What works best for you?
I mean, I like marshmallows. So I wish I could say, just give it to me bluntly. And I wish I could say that I could handle that with grace, because I know I need to, but I probably would have a hard time with that. And it would probably be a lot easier for me to hear a hard truth if it's done very tactfully, gently, start out with all the positive things first.
Yeah, the sandwich method.
That's right. And then insert that hard truth in there and let me digest it, gently. But
Well, and also,
But that's something I struggle with anyway. So
yeah, me too. I think that
Neil's a
I
lot better about that.
will hear things, will hear
Yeah.
correction or
Yeah.
criticism. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I tend to bristle if there's any kind of correction. Even this is so dumb yesterday. It kind of aggravated me. I went to make a return at the UPS store for an Amazon return. And it was these two they're trees that you can hang coffee mugs on. And I'd ordered two of them, and they didn't work out for whatever reason. So it says to put it in the original packaging, take it back, take it to the UPS store. So they came in a big box in two little boxes. So I put each of them in their little box, took them to the UPS store, and he said, it needs to be in the original packaging. I said, it is in the original packaging. He said, well, it's two different packages. And I said, that's how they came. He said, did it come in a bigger box? And I was like, well, it didn't tell me to put it in the bigger box. And he said, well, I'm afraid. And he was kind of an awkward guy, and I'm an awkward girl. So, the two of us were not clicking very well. And I said, can't you just tape them together to make one box? And just hearing someone, telling me what I don't want to hear, I tend to bristle.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that about myself. And I try, I've seen people that take things like that and they're, oh, okay, would you mind this time just maybe taping them together? And I'm like, can't you just tape it together? And I wasn't ugly or anything, but I think some of us know that we just bristle when we hear the truth.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was handed to us with maybe a little bit more sugar, and I think it makes a difference too if there is a relationship. And maybe that is where,
excuse me,
in when we present truth to the world from God's word, if we do it, to me, with this attitude of, you must accept this because it's God's truth, rather than saying with grace, this is God's truth and your life will be so much better if you follow it. There's different ways we can put things, and I don't think anybody's going to have any problem with this is what God says because he wants the best for you, rather than being thrown like cold water in your face. This is what God says and you have to do it. Some people can take that and some people appreciate that, but not everyone. Whereas I think on the other hand, that's the balance of grace and truth, is speaking truth, but graciously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I always love your honesty in conversations like this. And a lot of times you say things and I'm thinking, I'm the same way. I struggle with the same thing. The bristling is the good word for it. That's perfect. Mm-hmm. And I said that Neil handles it much better because I can say something to him and he just handles it. He's so mature. He doesn't bristle. And you think after 30 years of 30, well, however many years we've been married.
I can't do the math that 31
quick. Years, that I would have learned from him and learned to handle things equally well. And I think part of the reason is instead he's learned not to say things to me.
Yeah.
Or
how to say it.
Yes, he's learned how to say it. Yeah, for sure. But I ran across Ephesians 4:7, to each one of us, grace has been given.
Yeah.
And so there's our motivation to turn around and extend it to others. And we're also in the same chapter, verse 15 says, speak the truth in love. So Ephesians 4:7 and 15. And so an imbalance would be speaking the truth harshly. There's a difference between being direct and being harsh. Mm-hmm. Some people are like, that's just how I am. I'm just a very straightforward, right, direct kind of person. And that may be true, but you can still not speak something harshly. Mm-hmm. And then that's all grace. The other imbalance is all grace and no truth, you know? So recognizing it, first of all, in ourselves and having the maturity to be honest about it and take a look into our heart posture and where we fall on that. Mm-hmm. Is there an area of imbalance? What can we do to work on that? What should we be praying about that? And then I imagine that if we do, it'll start impacting relationships in our lives, with the people closest to us first, and then branching out into our own church families, our coworkers, our neighbors, everybody that we interact with and come in contact with. So,
yeah. I was thinking of, excuse us while we both clear our throats.
yeah.
John 1:14, the word became flesh and dwelt among us. I'm sure you've written this down too. We
Yeah.
saw his glory. Glory is the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. So like you were just saying a minute ago, it wasn't half grace, half truth. It's 100% grace and 100% truth. And when you look at those words and what do they mean? The word grace is a gift given out of goodwill or graciousness, a benevolently dispensed gift, gracious care. And then truth is authentic, careful, accurate, reliable. But even that, we tend to think of truth as just automatically being hard, but it isn't necessarily. It's careful and it's reliable. All those words to me indicate. So here's the words that were synonyms: careful, accurate, reliable, valid, trustworthy, genuine, authentic. To me, all of those words indicate that thought went into it, not just vomiting out what what to be true. I've just got to get it out there. I've just got to say it. That is not helpful. It's just not helpful, as opposed to someone who really is graciously speaking truth. Everyone in the world can appreciate graciously spoken truth. So, I mean, I obviously, anyone that knows me knows that I probably tend more towards the, I'm not going to be blunt. I'm not going to seek out any kind of conflict, or when sometimes I don't need to seek out conflict, but sometimes there's things I need to address and I'd rather not. And so I don't. I know that about myself, but I still feel like that's something that we can all work on. And I know I need to. It's just graciously speaking truth. And I think a lot of prayer goes into it, a lot of thought, a lot of intent, a lot of heart seeking, rather than just, like I said, just letting it all fall out of our mouths and without, just willy-nilly saying whatever you think because it's the truth. That's not right. That's just not right.
Yeah, I had John 1:14 down too because of that phrase, full of grace and truth. And the emphasis is on both of them, full of grace, full of truth. And that's what we're striving for. And, maybe if you're not sure where you fall, you can ask yourself some questions. Do I have a hard time forgiving others? If so, then, I probably lean toward that all truth side. And, or, do I have a problem with authority? Do I feel like the truths in the Bible are these moral constraints that suck the joy out of life? Then I probably lean more toward that grace side of it. And if I buck against authority and truth and things like that. But opening, as always, we go back to James that says the word is our mirror, and that's what we hold ourselves up against to see. As you say, we're looking into our heart very intentionally, and where does it fall, and what does a life look like that is full of grace and full of truth? Jesus, as we've already mentioned, is our perfect example, but you probably know people in your own life that you can see they have the courage to stand up for the truth, and they have the heart to interact with everybody in a loving, grace-filled manner. And we probably both can think of people in our lives like that are examples for us. And we can look at them and say, how are they doing that? And I think a lot of times when I picture individuals and names, they have a sweet, loving spirit. They just have that demeanor that you can tell they genuinely love people. And isn't that the truth about Jesus? He genuinely loved people. He genuinely wanted what was best for them. He genuinely enjoyed being around people. And those types of things, with all the names that come to my mind, I can say that about them. They genuinely love people, and you can tell.
Aren't they usually a little bit older too?
Yes, now that you mentioned it.
And I think that
Hmm. Interesting.
it takes time and seasoning and
Hmm.
experiences to get to that point.
Good
Jesus
point.
didn't need that because he was the perfect human. But I think most of us just need those things working in our lives to become that person. And so to me, that indicates that we need to give each other grace as we're growing in
Hmm.
them, and
Hmm.
that's what we're talking about today is being gracious. But even you and I in our 50s, did I just say that? We're in our 50s.
Yeah,
Um, but
barely.
I mean, we still have room to grow. But when we have encounters with people who are younger than us, or when we see encounters, social media or whatever, I immediately am like, oh, can't believe they're saying that. Why would they want to do that? But I need to give them grace and realize that it's going to take time for them to understand, and pray that God gives them the time to understand that they need to speak graciously as well. Um, I also came across a couple of quotes that I didn't realize that. I know you've heard this before. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about that with combative truth telling. I
Hmm.
am going to make sure you understand what it is that I'm trying to get across to you, and I'm going to force it into you, and
Right.
I'm going to convince you at all costs.
Use the Bible
That
as a sledgehammer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that quote comes from Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I didn't know it came from
Oh,
that, but
interesting.
I think that's so relevant. And then I came across
Hmm.
another one that he said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here: truth without grace breeds a self-righteous legalism that poisons the church and pushes the world away from Christ. Grace without truth breeds moral indifference and keeps people from seeing their need for Christ. So,
Hmm.
minimizing truth keeps people from Christ, and minimizing
Hmm.
grace keeps people from Christ. So, we have to find a way to make sure that both of them enter into our conversation every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, to be fair and to extend grace to all of us, I think God knew about our natural tendencies, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the beauty of the church. Really, is it takes all of us, and think about people that walk into our door and the different relationships that they need to develop to stay faithful and strong, and they're going to need people in their life that are teaching them and helping them grow in the word, and helping them work out some hard things that they may have to work through in their own families and lives. And then they also need the people that are helping them patiently with the struggles and the slow changes that they're trying to make, and showing them that love and grace and compassion. Now, we all need to be trying to do both, but I still think that God uses his whole church as a body
Mm-hmm.
and all the different parts and strengths that we each have to fulfill that and be well rounded in our
Mm-hmm.
relationships. But um, I'm looking at the time here, and I know what time we were wanting to stop. So I was
Yeah.
thinking maybe our challenge could be, as we go forward in this week, to really dissect our conversations, not what the other person is saying, but what we're saying,
Mm-hmm.
and see which way what we say, which way it leans,
Yeah.
and then try and make sure that each conversation is filled with both
Yeah.
grace and truth. Um, and I think that'll help us try to find that right balance, but also I think it'll end up helping us have real conversations this week.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you're not gonna worry about having a grace and truth filled conversation if you never talk about anything meaningful anyway. so
True.
so that can be our challenge for the week. Do you have anything else you want to add before we get into our something good for you?
Well, the one thing that I thought might be, I know there's a lot of things that would be helpful, but remembering who the real enemy is,
Mm-hmm.
and that we're on the same side. And I think that this is in every area of our life. In our marriages, sometimes we forget we're on the same side. In our
Mm-hmm.
families, we're on the same side. In the church, we are on the same side. And
Yes.
especially for those of us who tend towards only wanting to present truth without the grace, I think that's where we have to remember who the true enemy is. It's not my brother in Christ, or it's not my sister in my family, or sister in Christ, whatever. We're on the same side. We
Mm-hmm.
all battle Satan, and who is it that wants us to speak harshly? And who is it that wants us to speak graciously? And who are we serving? And I think always bringing it back to that every word we speak, everything that we do is we're honoring one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes I have to remember that. I just have to remember, even with that UPS guy yesterday, I'm representing someone. And I wasn't representing Satan yesterday. And I'm not saying it was that bad, but I don't know that I was representing Christ. I was not. In fact, when he pulled my receipt out, he kind of tossed it and it like hit the ground. And I was like, really? I could tell he was frustrated with me, but
Right.
he could tell I was frustrated with him. And I could have handled that so much more graciously. And I didn't. So just stuff like that helps me remember, who am I representing here?
Mm-hmm.
And then, for those who tend only towards grace, we have to remember that truth really is bold. But again, that the power isn't in me, but it's in the word that I'm representing, and in the man, the God that I represent. The power's in him, not in me.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that I was trying to remember. And do you remember? I had to look it up this morning. Do you remember that Geico commercial from years ago that had Abraham Lincoln and his wife? Obviously, it was not the real Abraham Lincoln.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, but it's those Geico commercials are usually hilarious, but it was like this grainy. It was made to look really old. But Mary Todd Lincoln, that was her name. She was a real chubby lady. And she's facing the camera and she says, Abraham, does this dress make my backside look big? And do you not remember this one?
No.
Oh, it's so funny. And he's standing behind her and there's like this long 20-second pause and he's standing back there going, like, he's debating with himself. He's thinking to himself, is this, how do I answer this? Because the truth is, and then finally he says, a little. And she gets mad and fumes off. And I think, we put people in a hard position sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and we want the truth, but we don't really want the truth.
Yes.
So we need to be people that want the truth and we're willing to accept it. Even when it's not given graciously, we have to hear the truth behind it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, sorry. And the motivation behind both is because we want everybody to go to heaven. That's why we're trying to be loving and patient and compassionate and warm and welcoming to all the people in the world. We want them to come in. We want them to get to know Jesus. We want them to go to heaven with us. And the same is true with our fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. If somebody makes you mad, extend to them the same grace that you would everybody out in the world. Or if somebody does something that you think should have been done differently, extend them the same grace. Don't be so judgmental or critical, because we just want everybody to go to heaven and we want to make it easier for them to do that. So that's our
remember
motivation.
that around the Thanksgiving table next week when
so true.
because what you're talking about, we're talking about the larger family within the church, but sometimes within our own families. Adam Warrens gave our devotional last night, and he was talking about all these memes out there that are slamming, just saying things like, if you can't get enough of the passive aggressive behavior around the Thanksgiving table, we invite you back for Christmas, and we don't have that, but I know there's a lot of families that do. It's not always easy. So just give grace to your physical family too, not just your spiritual family.
That is a perfect thing to end on. Very good. So what is your something good for you?
Mine is, I don't know exactly how to say it, but I wanted to recommend the Trey and Lee Morgan have a Facebook page. I know they have a podcast too, but if you don't have time to listen to their podcast, if you just follow their Facebook page, they have the best marriage advice. And it's quick and practical. You know them personally. I don't know them, but they have really, really good marriage advice. And so I thought I would just share that next week and recommend that people follow that. It's little quick things that you can follow and make your marriage better.
Neil's not on Facebook, but every time I see he shares these lists and good things about marriage, I feel like every single time I'm sharing it with Neil, listen to this,
Yeah.
and I'm reading it
Hmm.
and it's always so good. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
So mine is a sourdough chart
Hmm.
that I ran across that, the most challenging thing for anybody who tries sourdough or is interested in learning it, for me, the most challenging thing is figuring out the timeline.
Yeah.
When are you supposed to feed this? And then when are you supposed to add the rest of and when are you supposed to shape it? And when are you supposed to, when can you finally bake the thing?
Hmm.
And so I've seen a lot of different recipes and lists and people trying to condense it and make it simple. And I finally found the best. It's a little chart graphic timeline, and it's small and simple and easy. And it's called Sunday sourdough because they're assuming that you would start Saturday morning and then bake it on Sunday. And so it just has these little pictures of here's the exact time and what you do. Here's the next time and what you do. And it is so easy and simple. And I printed it
Right.
off to tape inside my kitchen cupboard,
Hmm. Yeah.
literally, so I can just open the door and go, okay, now I do this. So I feel like
Perfect.
finally somebody gave me exactly what my brain needed for the
Yeah.
whole sourdough process. So I'll share that in the Facebook group. So great conversation. I know you
Mhm.
have a lot to do today, and well, we'll need to record early next week because of the
Yeah.
holiday,
Oh, that's
but
right.
yeah, between
Or we
now
could just
and then.
record in the middle of all of the family next week. Thursday morning.
And
Parade.
yeah, who knows what we'll call that one.
Yeah. Chaos.
But in the meantime, Carla,
Keep looking at.
keep looking up. Love you, friends.
Love you too.
Take care.
Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.